was get the civilians out, and then they killed the the most important leader of an organization called Hizbul Mujahideen, a militant group in the Kashmir Valley. Did you try to arrest the militants?
Yeah, the moment we came in, they fired at our first two boys we entered. They fired at us after we started search. Then we had no option than to fire them.
Okay, let's go inside and look. This must be where they were killed, I think, because there's so much blood in here. I wondered how the family who lived in the house had escaped uninjured. But how did you get the civilians out if the militants were hiding in here?
You see, once you get to know of the target house, the first thing you do is that you send a message to them.
One of the soldiers has told me, but he can't say it on camera, that they sent a message to the civilians in this house, the owners, to get out, and then they proceeded to shoot when the militants fired on them. There's no way of knowing at the moment whether or not the owners of the house had harboured the militants because they wanted to or because they were forced to. By now, the whole neighbourhood had gathered to watch. What do you think about what's just happened here? A curious story began to unfold. But he says he doesn't think that the militants were killed in the house. He thinks they were brought from somewhere. The crowd challenged the army's version.
This man
said it was just like a drama, and another man has said that the crowd don't believe that the militants were killed in that house. It would have taken a lot longer to kill them than the 4 hours, because they could have moved from room to room and defended themselves better. Later, we returned to meet the owners of the house, the Kani family. It's dangerous to talk to the press, but they wanted to tell their story. Why is she so upset? What happened at her house?
At 8 p.m. forces come and they said we want to search here. And they said us, inside your family, please tell him come out. We, our family, come and sit there. And they told us, is anybody in the house now?
Inside the house.
Inside the house? We told him nobody is here now in the house. They search all over the house. They find nobody in the house.
The family is really shocked. They said that they told the family to go into this house, into the room, and they shut the curtains and said, shut the door. And half an hour later, the security forces arrived in a car, and the family here said they brought the 2 militants with them. The militants were not hiding in the house. They'd never seen them. And then they staged a fake encounter, put the men in there in that room, and they all fired at them for 3 hours and staged this encounter. Far from being supporters of the militants, the family said their father had once been captured by them and tortured until they paid a ransom.
This torture is done by the Hizbul Mujahideen to my father. And this is done by the Indian army. Now what is the position of a Kashmiri?
You're in between both.
We are in between the both. Army come, they torture us. After that, militants come, they torture us. You can see this. What the hell they are doing with my father? Hello dear, how are you?
Suddenly, their father arrived home. Your ID card.
Director, Kani Care Groups.
Farooq Ahmed Khani is a businessman.
Business of Chambers and Commerce, permanent member. Income tax Indian, citizenships.
He's at pains to show us that he's a respectable citizen. He's showing us every ID card he has. He's a citizen of the Indian nation. He's saying he showed us his ID, his membership of the Chamber of Commerce, various organizations. He's an important man in this town. He just doesn't know why this has happened to him. He showed us his air ticket, his hotel receipt. He was in Jammu, in another part of the province, on the night when this happened. His family was alone. The family's story that the security forces had executed the militants, then staged the shootout, was supported by other eyewitnesses. The security forces stand by their version of events. The family think their house was chosen because it was near a barracks and surrounded by a high wall. Human rights groups say summary executions are part of the Indian government's counterinsurgency strategy. We left Srinagar for the remote villages near the line of control, the front line between Indian and Pakistani-controlled Kashmir. For years, both sides have shelled each other across the line, and Kashmiri civilians have paid the price. Now there is a ceasefire. India and Pakistan are holding high-level talks about Kashmir's future. We've been stopped. We've got to produce our cards every few hundred meters because the security cordon is so tight. This is one of the closest villages to the line of control. Before the ceasefire, this is the place that got most of the shells. They were constantly fired from across the border by Pakistani troops. The Indian security forces showed us a house that had been hit by shell fire back in August.
And you can see the remnants, you can see there's the perforations made with it.
Yes. We're protected by a ridge here, but on the other side of the ridge, there by that mountain is the line of control. The snow-capped mountain is in Pakistan. This was one of thousands of houses hit by shells. A shell was fired from the mountains over on the Pakistani side, came through the roof where the big hole is, hit the floor in here, and then went into this room where children were sleeping.
She's the girl who was hurt in that.
It was hurt in that extent only. Yeah.
9-year-old Masrat was sleeping here with her cousins, 6-year-old Asar and 4-year-old Mason. Musfir, ask you this question. What happened to your cousins?